Okay. Excellent. 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 Fantastic. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Hey, thank you for coming. Okay, I'm going to get right into it. Okay, good evening. Thank you all for attending. As more people are joining, I have a few housekeeping notes. If you emailed me before yesterday evening to pre-register for this confidential portion of the meeting, you should have received an email with a private phone number and a link so that we can continue the share and prayer parts of the meeting. For everyone else that's joining me on Facebook Live, thank you so much for joining me. Your time is valuable, right? So, and I'm going to have more to say in the closing remarks, but by all means, hit the thumbs up to say amen, hit the heart to say I know that's right, and continue to share in the comment section. So God bless you. Welcome to the It Is Well Grief Recovery Virtual Share and Prayer Meeting. I am Kamith Whipple, and I help clients through their process of grief recovery using proven counseling techniques and methods, scripture, and prayer. I have over 7 years of professional experience and 10 years of volunteer experience meeting the practical needs of vulnerable populations, including the sick, the dying, and bereaved. I'm called by God to serve the seriously ill, those in the end of life transition, grieving families, and people experiencing grief due to other kinds of loss as well. Regularly, I post free videos to help you in your grief journey as well. Thank you for watching. Today, we are getting peace on Black folks and counseling. And I'm going to share with you a consideration on some things that we can do for family and friends who don't want traditional counseling. But first, last week's video's giveaway winner was Alicia C. I have already contacted her with instructions on how to pick up her giveaway. And as a thank you for watching this week, because I have a whopping 17 followers on Facebook, one blessed watcher will receive a $17 gift certificate to Amazon.com. I'm trying to get to 50, keep sharing so that we get to 50 subscribers. I can give out a $50 gift certificate. Stay tuned to learn this week's rules of the giveaway. I'll announce the winner in next week's video. Now, let's share. When we talk about Black folks and counseling, the truth is this is one stereotype that's based in reality. Although African Americans face the same mental health issues as their white counterparts, and some would even say an increased level due to added complications of racism and prejudice and economic disparities, they seek psychoanalytic help much less often. And this trend holds true for grief counseling as well. Black folks who need mental health support don't seek professional help. And the ones who do often have to battle social stigma before they get to treatment, let alone get an accurate assessment and adequate assistance. Now, I've read dozens of articles on the subject, and I wish I had time to cite them all. I'm actually going to post some of the good ones in the comment section later so you can read them for yourself. But this is the first problem. People are not getting the help they need. And this is not news. I'm guessing anybody who clicked on this video already knew this empirically. But here's my problem. The conversation about Blacks' mental health usually centers around blaming Black people for low participation. People say, oh, the Black church needs to support mental health professionals and try to combat the stigma, as if the Black church is not already supporting mental health professionals. They say Black people need to put more value in their mental health, as if we don't value our mental health. Black teens should aspire to become doctors, as if we're not already raising a generation of doctors. And Black doctors should mentor youth, as if there's not already mentoring programs set up for our youth. And I'm sure that there's a long list of reasons, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole today. I just first want to point out that this stigma did not drop out of thin air. Here are 4 reasons that Black folks don't go to therapy. 1, there's a real history of racism in the health field. And I know you know your history. Even after the abolition of slavery, You've read about it. You've watched the movie. Hundreds of Black men were denied proper treatment in the Tuskegee experiment. They didn't know they had syphilis. They didn't know they were being experimented on. And this lasted for about 40 years. This started in the 40s. That was only 4 generations ago. And you've read the book. You watched the movie, Henrietta Lack. Her cells were extracted and cloned without her knowledge or consent in the 50s. That's only 3 generations ago. And I'm sure that you know, especially my Philadelphia natives, I'm sure that you know that in the 70s there were chemical companies that paid prisons to conduct unethical experiments on Black inmates without their knowledge or consent. They literally used them as guinea pigs to see if particular chemicals would cause cancer. That was only 1 generation ago. And in 2014, the Examiner reported one example in this generation. While testing an experimental vaccine, the CDC manipulated and hid data that proved Black babies were more than 3 times more likely to develop a regressive form of autism if they received it. And the parents of the Black babies who were receiving the vaccines were not made aware of the risk of their child. Racism is real in the health field, and these stories are true and are passed from generation to the next generation, only to be supported by more true stories. There's a psychological phenomena called the white coat effect. A patient will assume anyone in a white coat, anyone in a doctor's uniform, is a person of authority, and they'll take their medical advice and they will believe what they say is true. Well, what psychological effect would you expect when generation after generation of people have been deceived and victimized and tortured by people in those white coats? The second reason Black folks don't go to counseling is in mental health specifically, there's a perceived cultural bias on the part of the patient. Trusting your practitioner is paramount in mental health. And psychologists understand this, right? Many patients, regardless of their ethnic group or their subculture, are often more comfortable with a professional of, his or her own identity. Many women feel more comfortable with women practitioners. Many Black people feel more comfortable with Black practitioners. And the practitioners understand this. They don't take it personally. But W.E.B. Du Bois would argue that more than any other ethnic group, African Americans experience this double consciousness, this two-ness, this understanding that you're always being watched and perceived, and as a consequence, can never be your true self for the fear of backlash towards yourself or towards the entire community. The third reason why Black folks don't go to therapy is the perceived prejudice that African Americans feel with their non-Black practitioners is actually true. Dr. Liat Granick, I keep saying her name wrong, Liat Granick. She's an expert in the field. She published an eye-opening article in the Huffington Post that I read in 2015 that says this. I'm gonna quote her. Clinicians who usually belong to a socially advantaged group were twice as likely to give the wrong diagnosis of mental illness when their patients came from a disadvantaged ethnic minority background. This cultural mismatch, she says, potentially caused by bias or lack of knowledge due to the little or no published research on this group, can result in these groups receiving poorer mental health services. So, there's a history of racism in the health industry. There's a perceived prejudice on the part of mental health patient, and there's a real prejudice on the part of mental health practitioner. And fourthly, and finally, and then I'm going to get off this topic, I promise, if you consider African American culture like an anthropologist, faith and hope are very important values. African Americans repeat to themselves and instill in their children that things can get better and things will get better in the future, regardless of the current circumstances. This is antithetical to our contemporary concept of mental health diagnosis, right, that you permanently live with. So you live with depression for the rest of your life? If the diagnosis is permanent, then there's no hope for a better future. It's just incongruent with the culture. And this is why we hear from the community that your depression and your anxiety can be cured, right? That Black folks don't go to therapy. Now, to be absolutely positively clear, I am not advocating that anyone avoid psychotherapy or counseling. You should go. I am not advocating that people who are currently in counseling should stop their treatment. You should continue. I am not saying that the Black community is doing a great job of addressing the issue of mental health. We are probably not. I just simply want to point out that there are concrete reasons why many Black people are still averse to traditional therapy, and that averseness is a reasonable response. So, instead of chastising Black folks when they are averse to going to therapy, instead of trying to make Black people react to their mental health issues, including grief, the same way that white people do, I suggest a gentler approach. Let's use the methods and tactics that are culturally congruent and have been effective for over 400 years. In fact, psychology is just now catching up with that mother wit that generations in the past have taught us. It's a new focus that's coming into the spotlight. It's called resiliency. Resiliency work is a fantastic method for many depression and anxiety issues, and it's perfect for grief and other temporary transitional life stages. Resiliency is congruent with the values of faith and hope, and this is huge, resiliency techniques can be learned by a layperson. So you don't need a degree to help people. Resiliency simply is honestly remembering past successes with perspective and creating healthy coping strategies for the present state and taking those healthy coping strategies into the future crises. You are made of strong stuff. You survived past losses. You even thrived after some. You will survive this loss. You can thrive after this loss, and eventually you're going to be stronger for any future losses that come to you. But here's the key. It's more than just spouting cliches. In order to get to this place of resilient recovery, this place where you remember your loss reverently and truthfully without spiraling into a debilitating depression or harmful behavior, you have to do the work. So the first step of this work is remembering the past accurately and verbalizing it in a safe space. See, Black folks do go to counseling. It's just different. They share stories in their safe spaces like church groups, barbershops, fraternities, and sororities, and lunches with your sister friends. Listen, there is a need for psychotherapy with a licensed psychiatrist, therapist, social worker, and counselor. But for many of us, we can work through our grief healthfully with a trained layperson. So, what do we do when a friend or family member doesn't need emergency services or intense psychotherapy, but probably needs to speak with someone? Glad you asked. The book of Proverbs teaches us that the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Again, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. And in Proverbs 15, without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. Not everybody needs intense treatment. So if you or someone you know is currently going through a grief period and formal training seems unnecessary or inaccessible or unrealistic, start focusing on resiliency. It just might be the answer that you're looking for. And you can count on me to keep posting resources and exercises to get you started. And for those who need intense treatment but choose not to go, resiliency work can be a wonderful gateway to a more traditional mental health counseling with a professional licensed social worker, counselor, or therapist. There is a place for lay counseling. And the best grief book I've come across that teaches resiliency is the Grief Recovery Handbook by John James and Russell Friedman. This is the basis of my work that I'm happy to share with you. Please contact me whenever you're ready to stop feeling miserable all the time. I'll be happy to lead you through the exercises that brought me through my grief recovery. Or don't. That's cool too. Speak with a trusted friend or a spiritual advisor or an elder or a licensed professional. Just don't let the stigma stop you from getting the help that you need. And don't stop seeking help until you've found peace. You are made of strong stuff. You can get through this grief period. On the other side is peace and contentment and a new life with hope. So now it's your turn to share. I want you to think back. How have you demonstrated strength after a loss in your life? Let me know in the comments area of this video. And if you have a question or a request for a future video, comment below as well. I want to share information that is truly helpful to you. So don't forget to friend, follow, subscribe so you don't miss a video, including next week's video when I will announce the random winner of this week's giveaway. Remember, in order to receive your $17 Amazon gift certificate, this week's rules are simple. First, like and follow my Facebook page. Then answer the question of the week either in the comment section of the video or in a tweet. Either way, use the hashtag #BlackGrief so I see it. Remember, the question is this: how have you demonstrated strength after a loss before? Those who are joining me for the second portion of this confidential prayer meeting, you guys are already entered. You don't have to do anything. And if you or someone you love is grieving any kind of loss, if you serve the grieving or bereaved, or if you'd like to support those in the middle of their process, we'd love to join you for our Friday evening virtual share and prayer meetings. Email me to get pre-registered and receive the private link. And for those good people, we have 42 minutes left. For those that are catching me again on the more public space, God bless you. Thank you for attending. My prayer for you is that the God whose name is Wonderful Counselor provide you with empathy, understanding, comfort, and peace today.